Hello and greetings again, my friends, and welcome back to Christian Wilderness. My name's Zach, and I'm back again. And thank you all for all the encouraging words on my videos so far. It's quite a new channel, but it's good. It's good to get my thoughts out there, and there's been a lot of useful feedback in the YouTube comments and on the Facebook pages. So thank you again for all of that. And what is today's subject? It is universalism or universal reconciliation. And I'm just dipping my toe in here, okay? So don't bite me head off. I'm exploring. I'm just having a look, okay? But one thing I can say is that if this is true, universal reconciliation, if it's true, then this surely has to be the best news ever. And I'm not really understanding why there's so much pushback on this subject, probably more than all my previous heresies put together. I mean, being a Protestant, Unitarian, full preterist, covenant creationist, Satan and hell denying Christian, I can safely say that this is a bugbear for Orthodox Christianity. It most certainly is. And my question is simply, who wouldn't want their loved ones reconciled to God in the afterlife, regardless their beliefs? Right? I mean, this is great news, I think. Now, you know, in my Christian career, I've previously come up against this view of universalism, and I want to just go quickly through and have a look at maybe some common misconceptions or things that people will knee-jerk react against with this view, because I did it as well. And I think it's because I didn't really fully understand it. So I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about here. Let's have a look at this common objection here. And basically people will chime in that universalism just denies the whole judgment and punishment side of things. Now, I can't talk for all universalists because the view has several subcategories, just like every view out there. There's not 100% agreement in the broader umbrella camp. But what I can say from my research, which is fairly limited so far, I've only been into this view for a few months really, but what I'm seeing is that most universalists acknowledge judgment. Certainly I do acknowledge judgment, but I see judgment as part of a corrective action plan. And I see it as lasting for a certain age or period, a set period of time, not eternal. Now, I know eternal comes up in the Bible a lot, and I'm going to get to that in a second. But what I was talking about last week with my hell video was that most, if not all, of the judgment that Jesus talked about was with regards to the end of the Old Covenant age and the wrath that was about to come on Israel. And again, I'm looking at you, full preterists, and think that you'll probably agree with a lot of that. Basically, like all of the Gehenna verses, as explained last week. If you haven't seen last week's video, I'd go back and watch the one, Hell, a closer look, because I think I'd make a pretty good case that Jesus doesn't actually talk that much about the afterlife when he's speaking to Israel. And I just think God's correction, his justice and his correction leads to restoration, you know. Not endless punishment. I don't see any point to like endless eternal punishment. Like, do you? Like, we call prisons correctional facilities, right? So Universalists, my brand anyway, believe in judgment. We believe we're all judged by the works that we do, our works, our deeds, what goes on in our right hand, if you will. But it's like a father correcting his children. Like a father doesn't just endlessly punish his children with no end goal in sight, is what I'm seeing. And I think probably we're all going to receive correction. You know, I'm not sure how many of you have seen my little tongue-in-cheek video to Shadestone a couple of weeks back, but you know, there's so many doctrines out there. Like, who knows if I'm right or wrong, or partially right or wrong, or any of them. Probably going to need the finer details sorted out when I eventually meet my maker, right? So I don't think people are going to be so harshly judged by God as most Christians believe. You know, many world religions believe in Jesus and his teachings. Like, a lot of Buddhists say that Jesus was a great teacher, and they'll say, like, he backs up all of our teachings about karma and the rest of it. You know, so, you know, for example, my wife's Buddhist, okay? She does lots of good things. She helps people, she helps the poor. She knows what it's like to come from a very difficult family, difficult background, but a poor family. And she does way more good things than me. You know, she gives money to people in need. She's a Buddhist. Like, she believes in karma. And who knows where Jesus, the influence that Jesus had on this religion, you know? So do you think that when my wife passes from this life to the next, God is going to have a go at her, you know, for not having a certain understanding of a very, very difficult book like the Bible? Or would he probably be pleased that his son Jesus has had a great influence on the world, and that this big religion, Buddhism, has accepted his teachings as true and follow it, basically? I think Buddhists will be all right. You know, they might need some correction in the finer tunes of their doctrines, just like I will. Okay, so I don't see myself as any better or probably worse than my wife theologically. I mean, I get Christians tell me all the time that I'm a heretic. So maybe my wife's even better off than me in her understanding and where she is at the moment. So, Muslims, they believe in Jesus as a great teacher, even a great prophet. They've even got like an end times scenario where Jesus comes back, same as most Christians do. Muslims believe in loving their neighbours. Most do anyway. If you ask my dad, who's a liberal Jew, he'll say, yeah, Jesus, great guy. Love your neighbour and all that. But he didn't get round to having a certain biblical understanding. He's very entrenched in his view of Judaism, very liberal Judaism. It's more of a culture and tribal thing for him. But anyway, universal restoration does, or reconciliation, does not deny judgment or punishment in the form of correction. It only denies that God delivers endless punishment for people without the goal of coming to correction. Okay? Now, the second objection is that it ignores free will. Because, and this is a misunderstanding that I had as well, universal reconciliation is simply that the view that people, when they die physically, that they can still come to the knowledge of God and Jesus when they move to wherever it is we move next, heaven, whether that is locational or a state of being or whatever, that there is still the opportunity to be reconciled with God, which I think is totally in line with God's character. But I run into this free will argument a lot, and I just want to point out, that the Calvinist versus Arminian debate has been going on for hundreds and hundreds of years, and I think that alone is testimony that this is not like a simple issue. It's not just cut and dry. I mean, I tend to lean reformed on that particular tenet of Calvinism, the whole irresistible grace thing. So, just for clarification on this whole free will thing, I think that God's love and grace can definitely lead all souls to reconciliation. Okay? And I don't see this as some kind of coercion or forcing someone to believe something. I just think that God is the most convincing person ever. So I don't think he's going to have a problem convincing people. Okay? Like, free will remains intact, but ultimately free will choose God because that's just simply the best choice. And the realistic choice. So I don't think it's going to take much convincing, do you? I mean, allow me to just paint this picture for you, okay? Let's say that I'm like a hardened atheist, right? And I've just like come off my motorbike or whatever and I've died. And I'm following the light and I end up in this courtroom scene, yeah? I'm a career atheist, right? Now, what am I going to be faced with at that point? I'm going to be faced with some kind of figure on a throne who's like just a blazing light. I've got a guy over there. I've got 12 geezers over there, right? Now, the guy over there comes up to me and says, all right, Jesus, yeah, you might have heard of me. Now, please tell me, what is this guy going to be thinking at that point? Okay, let's play devil's advocate. Atheist guy says, okay, well, obviously this is a dream. All right, I'm dreaming. Jesus says, okay, no problem. I understand your point of view. Let's just, what would you like to do now? Atheist guy says, well, I mean, we'll just wait around for a few hours and I'm obviously going to wake up. Jesus says, okay, no problem. Should we give it 8 hours? Atheist guy says, yeah, okay. 3 days later, atheist is still standing there. Jesus is like, what do we do now? do you know what I mean? Like, this atheist guy is being faced with reality. Okay, atheist guy says, well, I must be in some kind of computer simulation or something because I do not believe in God or Jesus. So that's what must be happening now. And like, Jesus will just like take him through his entire life, show him like all the errors of his ways. You know, Jesus is going to be extremely convincing at that point, and he's going to show this guy that it cannot possibly be a computer simulation. So I just think that, you know, people are going to have to accept the reality of what post-mortem means. You know, this atheist guy will obviously just think to himself, right, I must have been wrong all along. It is Jesus and it is Yahweh that was what was reality all along. So, okay, I believe. What's next? You know, that's how it's going to go, isn't it? You know, a Muslim guy will get to heaven and be like, okay, Jesus, God, the God of the Bible, got it, no problem. A Buddhist person will get there. Oh, okay, I heard about Jesus, and this is the whole, it must have been the whole Bible thing that was right all along. Do you know what I mean? It's not like forcing someone to believe something. It's simply giving them, it's just showing them the reality of the situation, and at that point that person is going to accept it. I mean, in their own mind they're not going to have any option but to accept it. That's not forcing someone to believe something. You know, it's like there's no other option than to believe reality. Okay, so that's the free will thing as far as I'm concerned. All right. Now, another common objection is that, oh, this just means that all religions are the same then. We might as well pack up our bags and just go home because nothing means anything. I actually had someone the other day on a Facebook group say to me, what you're talking about is the theology of nothing. It's the theology of nothing because nothing matters then. And like, I think this is another misconception because Christian Universalists, the one I'm interested in anyway, affirms that Jesus is the way to salvation, and that Christ's work reconciles all people to the Father. But it's that the only point of difference is that the process might vary from person to person. Okay, some people might have not had the opportunity in their living state on earth to get there, and their process will continue post-mortem. So again, it's believed by universalists that people can be convinced after death. We don't believe in a stopwatch where God really, really cares about lost people right up until the point where the heart stops beating. So there is nothing clear in the Bible really about what happens when you die. I will admit that there is nothing saying there is a second chance to believe in God after you die, but I'm also going to say that there's nothing saying that you can't. And if you're looking at your screen right now and thinking, I've got this verse, I've got this verse that says X, by all means, drop it in the comment. Let's talk it out, I'm not going to try and convince you that my view is correct. All I want to do is just say universalists are your brother and sister, okay? They're not heretics. They just got a view, and there's reasons for the view, and it should not be something to be saying, well, I can't hang out with you anymore. Then you're a heretic. And I think a lot of it comes from pride, because Christians, believe that they've put the work in, they've got their doctrines nailed, and they can't look at other people who have not looked into stuff and have not made certain confessions or agreed with certain creeds and don't have a certain intellectual understanding. They don't want to. They're very exclusive. They can't accept that those other people who don't believe in Jesus, especially believe in Jesus in their kind of way. All right, because there's a lot of different beliefs about Jesus, but anyway, they don't want to have let those people get the same thing as them at the end of the day. Okay, but universal reconciliation believes that we do at the end get the same thing, but the process is different for each person, and this is what I didn't understand when I was looking at this at first. I thought it was just you die, boom, you get the same thing as everyone else, and we're all lovey-dovey. No, we believe in correction. We believe that there are punishments. You're going to have to face the things that you were wrong about the things you did wrong in your life. Let's take Hitler, for example, okay? We don't believe, universalists, that Hitler died and went to heaven and got in a hammock and listened to reggae music. And that's been him ever since. Hitler probably, I would say most certainly, had to watch his life like a movie of his life. He needed to be confronted with all the people he hurt, all the people that he killed, all the lives he affected. He would have to watch reruns and reruns until he understood about his crimes and about the horrors that he produced. Okay. And then eventually he would need to admit, he would come to the understanding of his own free will that what he did was wrong. Okay? Now, my question to you is, wouldn't you want that? Yeah? Why would you want Hitler to roast forever in an underground torture chamber forever, like he'd probably be happy down there. Yeah, no problem. I always hated like anything to do with Jesus and God and all that. And yeah, just leave me down there. I'm immortal down here in hell. Yeah. And why, all you annihilationists out there, why would you want him to just, like God to just click his fingers and Hitler's just out of existence? Why would you not want him to be corrected? Why would you not want him to gain the understanding that he was wrong, apologize for it, go to all the people? He'd have to visit every single person that he killed up in heaven, in whatever that looks like, and he would have to sit there and get down on his knees and cry and apologize for everything he'd done wrong. Now, you tell me, would you not like to yourself go to heaven and meet that Hitler? A totally humble man who has been taught everything that he'd done wrong and who's repented of it and understood the truth of his actions. That's my question. So, we don't believe in a stopwatch, that there's no second chances. Okay, that's simply as that. And so there's one God, the Father, and his Son, the Messiah, and sooner or later, every knee will bow. Right? Like it says in Philippians 2. At the name of Jesus, every knee should bow, of those in heaven and those on earth and those under the earth. Right? And that every tongue should confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. Okay? And that doesn't mean that Christians are somehow better than Buddhists or Muslims, because you got Christians calling each other heretics over every point of doctrine. Okay? So we all need to remain humble. I've been told that I'm worse off than the heathen who've never even known God. I've been called Antichrist for some of my beliefs. So who knows what kind of corrections any of us are going to need when we eventually meet the Almighty, right? Now, another common objection is that it just straight up contradicts the Bible, universal salvation does. And because you've got your verses, right, your everlasting punishment and all the rest of it. But what I want to point out, and what I will get into deeper on a future video when I do more videos on this, is that we have key verses in the Bible which you would be surprised at if you looked into a little bit more. And I'm again looking at my full preterist friends who love the word age, right? And I want you to go and look at the verses that you think show endless punishment or eternal annihilation from the face of the Lord or whatever. And I want you to go and look at the Greek there, because you will find the word age popping up all the time, I mean, the biblical language supports age-lasting correction, okay, not infinite punishment at all. Okay, I'm fairly confident about that now, having looked into it a little bit. I encourage you to look into it also. I mean, I can probably point to one of the most famous verses in the Bible. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believeth in him should not perish, but have eternal life. Okay, now that actually says life age, not eternal life. The word is eon there. So it's life age, or I would interpret that as they will not perish, but have life of the age, or even life of the age to come. Now, is there a temporal meaning to that? If I'm violating the Greek on that, then please do tell me. But I would interpret it as physical life in the age, the Christian age to come, which was after 70 AD when Jerusalem was destroyed and the Christian age, the New Covenant age, started. So, I mean, that's opposed to the view that what Jesus was warning about constantly with the Gehenna or the lake of fire was about some kind of everlasting hell, okay? Which I don't think it is. I think Gehenna and all those warnings, Jesus was warning about temporal life. He was very concerned that the church live on into the new age, okay? So is that verse actually saying, for God so loved the world, as in Israel, because he was sent to the lost sheep of house of Israel, that he gave his only begotten son, that whoever believed him, right, about all the warnings that he was given, and believed him to get the heck out of Dodge, right, when Jerusalem was surrounded by armies, whoever believed in him, believed his word, and actioned on his word, should not perish in the wrath to come, because the axe was already at the root, right? But have life, physical life, of the new age, rather than having the punishment of the age, okay? So I think we can benefit from having a bit of a deeper look at verses like that, okay? Now, the last common objection I'm going to go through is that it's related to the other objection of it just means all religions are the same, and we might as well pack up and go home, because there's no point in even evangelizing the good news. But I would ask people who answer like that, I would just ask them, for what reason do you love your neighbour? Okay? For what reason? Because loving your neighbour is all about your life here on earth. Okay? It like loving your neighbour is not going to be any use to you up in heaven, is it? It's about earthly things. You know, Jesus came for social change. He came to make the world a better place to live in physically. Okay? And when everyone is loving each other on earth, then they truly know God, right? Because God is love. And love works no ill at all, right? So, are you only following Jesus's way to have an afterlife? Or do you want to focus on love as a transformation agent for joy and peace in this life? Yeah. Jesus said, love your neighbor. You know, that's earthly advice. It's not heavenly advice, right? So the brand of universalism that I'm into, that I'm dipping my toe into, says that evangelism is very important. You know, spreading the good news that we're all going to be reconciled to God, and the earlier that we're reconciled, the better for us, because the more we follow Jesus and his ways, the better the world is going to be, isn't it? So it absolutely does not remove the need for evangelism or for people to come to the knowledge of the Lord. You know, no more than you might argue with a Calvinist, because a Calvinist would say, you know, everyone who is going to come to the Lord is predestined to do so. You know, an Arminian might say to him, well, there's no point in evangelizing them because God's already decided. But Calvinists will say, well, that's how God brings people to him, is through us evangelizing, right? So it's the same thing, really. You know, universal reconciliationists believe that people should come to the knowledge of God as early as possible. That's the best thing moving forward. But if they don't, then they will do eventually. That's all. So, to recap then, because I want to keep these videos to half an hour-ish. You know, judgment is corrective, okay? It's not endless or eternal. Regardless of the verses that you think support that, you should have a closer look at them, all right? Free will remains. It's not a free will issue, okay? God doesn't force the knowledge of him on anyone. He doesn't need to. When you get there, you'll know, okay? You'll be faced with reality, and your free will have no choice, no logical choice other than to accept reality, okay? Universalism does not equate all religions, okay? Not the version I'm looking at either. It doesn't equate all religions. It just says that all religions have been affected by Jesus, number one. And number two, even a Christian is not necessarily better off than, say, a Buddhist, because we could have all our doctrines wrong anyway. So we're all going to get corrected by God's own teaching to us when we get to meet him face to face, as it were. Okay? So I don't think scripture supports endless punishment. I think if you really dig in, you'll see that it's age-lasting punishment. And there were many ages in the past, and there's multiple ages after the old covenant ended. You know, there was this age and the age to come with regards to the people living in the first century, but they were just talking about their age and the next age. Not that we know that there's a plurality of ages. Okay. Now, my last thought on this is this, that I want people to think on this very carefully. We are not all dealt the same hand in life, okay? We are not all given the opportunities to build a certain knowledge or understanding the same as our neighbour, okay? Maybe it'll help if I give you like an example. Take my mum, okay? She was, her family escaped Poland and went east. Basically, the Germans invaded Poland and the Russians invaded, and they were squeezing in, and many Jews knew about the things that were happening in Germany for Jews, and a lot of them went east, and some of them were just forcibly taken east by the Red Army. And my mum's family ended up in near the Ural Mountains in the Soviet Union, and she was born in a industrial factory city called Magnitogorsk, okay, in the Soviet Union. And she was born into a very, very difficult environment, okay? She picked up polio over there, which I think is caused by heavy metals, not viruses, but let's not go there, all right? She then, after the war, made it back to Poland, which was by then a communist country. So she's had all this communist influence at the beginning of her life. And then from Poland, she went to Israel and got indoctrinated with like all kinds of nationalist Zionism and all the rest of it. By this time, she's like 35 years old. She then went to the UK and married a liberal Jewish guy, my dad. And, you know, by that time, she was very settled. And if you like, she had a lot of thoughts that were dominant for her, and she was a liberal Jewish kind of atheist Zionist woman married to a partner who had this similar thoughts, and she had a hard life surviving in Europe and getting around to like finding a man and getting settled down in the UK eventually. And by that time she's settled in her thoughts, okay? She had a very different upbringing and opportunities than say I did. All right? Now, I don't think that God is going to judge my mum too harshly. I definitely don't think that he's going to annihilate her from existence when she passed on a few years ago. And I see that as fantastic news. Don't you? Don't you feel that that's good news? Like, shouldn't the gospel be the best news ever? Now, people who didn't have the opportunity in their lives, they will get correction, as all of us, I think, will get some kind of correction. They will need to face up to the deeds that they've done in their life. Maybe they'll even have to do they'll get some punishment from that. I hope that I receive punishment for all the wrong things that I've done in my life. Maybe I'll get, 20 years of community service that I'll have to do. Maybe Stalin's doing 1,000 years of community service for all the people that he killed. So this is quite important. I believe that God's punishments are by measure, okay? You can't tell me that my mum, who had such a difficult life, okay, is going to be punished with the death penalty the same as Stalin or Hitler is going to get. Because that is not eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. That is not equal punishment. That is not love your enemies, like Jesus said. That's not forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do, is it? So, that's my thoughts for today. I'm just having a look at this. Maybe some of you can come with me on this journey. I'm just going to keep exploring. But what I'm seeing is that universal reconciliation has been massively misunderstood. And another thing I'm seeing is that it does actually line up with Scripture. And more importantly, it lines up with God's character, which is all compassionate and all loving and all forgiving and infinitely in measure. All right, so that's all from me today. And I will see you possibly not next week, but maybe the week after, because I'm going on holiday. Bye, guys.